All right, thank you everyone. We are back with our second portfolio showcase event. Again, my name is Bianca Riello and I support the network and partnerships on the CTIP team, and really excited to be here to moderate the second session here. We will be even reaching some global impact with a series of these next presentations. So really excited to see, how CTIP has supported these companies in their commercial efforts and beyond. So first, without further ado, I will introduce Ashley Moy, CEO and founder of Cast21.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here to share everything with you that we've been working on at Cast21 and the wonderful things we've been able to do because of our relationship with CTIP. My name is Ashley Moy, and at Cast21, we focus on elevating the patient experience and decreasing medical frustrations, starting with orthopedics. We know castings. Actually, our co-founder was born with bilateral club feet and wore casts on his feet every single day for the first 2 years of his life, and then became a pommel horse gymnast and broke everything from the hips up. He's been in over 65 casts and braces, and that's not an exaggeration. So we know very intimately about the hardships that come with standardized traditional care when it comes to mobilizing our bones and joints. Turns out this is not just very uncomfortable for patients and their families, particularly when parents need to take care of their patients with them, but they also result in a lot of downstream comorbidities that are costing the healthcare industry millions of dollars in litigation and treating those. So we've developed a superior solution to traditional bone and joint immobilization. We've created a waterproof alternative to a cast or a brace. This product is lightweight and comfortable for the patients, but is also a lot more efficient and faster, easier for the clinicians to use. We also listened to all of our stakeholders when we were going through the development process, and our patients can pick their favorite color and even decorate it with a permanent marker. Our technology works by taking into account the current workflow at the office. So a product like the sleeve that you see here is slid on over the patient's limb. Then an external pack of liquid is attached to the sleeve, where the liquid transfers from the pack into the sleeve and hardens into a rigid structure. That's it. That's the entire process. And this particular process allows us to take into account every patient's unique anatomy while still being able to mass manufacture a product. This keeps that streamline of care moving as efficiently as possible. We're the only product on the market that can do this. We take into account as much of the experiences from the patient's perspective as well as the clinicians as we can here. Our technology is the only one that can be used without access to modern day luxuries, such as clean water, heat, and electricity for application and removal. That means that our products can be used in the clinic, which is traditional, but also on the sidelines, in developing areas, and anywhere else where you may need care. When comparing our product to the standard of care, we find a lot of similar mechanical strengths and in some cases even better performance. For example, when you hit our technology or our products with a load, it'll bounce back to its original shape. It's just much like a helmet or a knee guard or a shin guard would. This will prevent the patient and their family from needing to go back to the ER right away to prevent any patient pressure sores. When we also look at the safety of our technology, we find that the off-gassing of different potential carcinogens that come with the standard of care, there's a significant difference in those two, and you don't even see any with ours. There's also a benefit to the clinicians from a reimbursement and revenue generation perspective. When clinicians switch from standard of care to our technology, they're making about $170 more per case through the different reimbursement patterns. And our product has been reimbursed by private and public payers, including TRICARE, Medicaid, and Medicare. None of this would have been possible without the fantastic team that I work with. I've highlighted a couple of people from our management team here as well. Together, we've been working on or started more than a dozen companies. And I, of course, want to give a huge shout out to everybody at CTIP. They've been such amazing partners with us. Truly, every part of our company, from its very first development all the way through to clinical trials, supporting our research, bringing us on wonderful networking opportunities, and our very first publication. Thank you. We couldn't have done any of this without all of your support. With them, we've been able to partner with some of the best organizations here in the States and are continuing to grow around the world. We love working with our fantastic clinical partners. And because of this, we've been able to have some really fantastic growth. We really enjoy working with all of our partners to help listen to you and bring the solutions that we hear that you need from us. This includes more efficient care. And because we're able to accommodate for all of these different solutions, we're also really excited to share that our company is continuing to grow. So our product sales increased 80% year over year in the past year, and about 87% of that is coming from the exact same clinic. So the people who use our technology are really loving it. And we have so much more to grow. So if you know someone who could benefit from this technology, please let us know. We'd love to refer them to your care if you're a clinician, or if you're looking for more patients, we'd love to refer them to you. Also, I hope it's okay that I put this up here. I didn't ask, but Dr. Bent has a research account at CHLA, and I'd love for you all to support her as she supported us. We also have some limited investment opportunities as well. If you'd like to participate, I'd be happy to speak with you about that. Thank you again so much. My name is Ashley Moy. Happy to answer questions later.
Thank you, Ashley. Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Harvey Karp, CEO and Chief Medical Officer of Happiest Baby.
Okay, so wonderful to be here. Thank you, everybody at CTIP. Juan, especially thanks to you. I got actually first met Juan really, I mean, I met you at the AAP a long time ago, but I met you when Juan was giving a grand rounds at Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. And I said, oh my God, I got to talk to this guy. And it's been just a fantastic partnership. And I so appreciate the encouragement and the very wise counsel. I'm basically a pediatrician. I worked 30 years in the office and then really recognized the fact that parents need help with helping their babies cry less and sleep more. We created SNOO, which is a little robotic or responsive baby bed. And here you have two pictures. One is the hospital version and the other is the home version. And whoops, that is the wrong direction. Here we go. So parents are struggling. We know that it used to be that you'd have an extended family. You know, you'd have 5 nannies, basically, your grandma, your aunt, your older sisters. Now, not so much. And even back then, parents were struggling with crying babies, exhaustion. It isn't just a nuisance. It's not just a sitcom kind of joke about the mother falling asleep at the red light or something like that, or the dad pouring the orange juice in his coffee. Parent exhaustion leads to postpartum depression, child abuse, and ultimately unsafe sleeping practices that lead to thousands and thousands of deaths every year. Much more than that, it leads to parent discord, it leads to breastfeeding failure, it leads to stress injuries, it leads to illness, it leads to car accidents, it leads to cigarette smoking and substance use, and it leads to loss of work where people just cannot come back to work. And one of the examples of this is the incidence of infant death. Sudden infant death syndrome is about 3,500 babies a year, unchanged in the last 20 years. 3,500 babies is equivalent to the number of Americans who died in 9/11, except this is happening year after year after year. And that's really how we started the company, was to say, these kids, these are healthy kids, they shouldn't be dying. What can we do to keep babies safely on the back? Because it's well known that back sleeping is the best way to reduce their risk of death. And most recently, just a couple of months ago, leading members of the Academy of Pediatrics came out with a report saying, hey, back to sleep is great, it ain't working. It's not working. Obviously, it's not, because there's been no reduction in these deaths in the last 20 years. And what we need to do is help children sleep better, help parents have the ability to get their kids to sleep better. And that's where we looked at baby beds. And ultimately, they haven't changed in 3,000 years. So innovation was ripe. So now, one of my favorite T-shirts says, science, it's like magic, except it's real. And so what if I could wave a magic wand and we could make babies sleep an extra hour or two? We could calm 50% of crying in under 2 minutes. We could instantly or automatically sleep train babies. We could reduce postpartum depression. What if we could even reduce infant death? And what if we could get people back to work? And what if we could make parents feel happier and supported, even if they don't have extended family. So that was the challenge. And so we created SNU, which is this beautiful little bed. It's in the permanent collection of the Smithsonian now. It's been exhibited in 6 leading museums around the world. It's the most awarded baby product in history. So we've gotten lots and lots of attention for this. And it's really an automatic care provider or helper or nanny, if you will, in the home. In the hospital, it's an automatic nurse assistant. And then we're very proud that we've been able to get de novo authorization for SNU to keep babies safely on the back. First device that's been accepted for positioning babies safely through sleep. And so it gives womb-like motion and sound, and anyone who wants to see it, it's out in the lobby out there. Rocks and shushes all night. If the baby cries, it responds with 4 different levels of increasing rhythm and sound, imitating a caregiver. That's what robots do. They imitate caregivers. And so we, in addition to all of that, we secure babies so they cannot roll to an unsafe position. So here's SNU in action. Now, it looks odd when you see a baby doing this, but it's kind of what you do when they're in your arms. You just don't see the head going like that. You drive them in a car, and it used to be pediatricians like myself would tell people, you know, if your baby's really struggling, drive them for a few hours in the car. Of course, dangerous for the parent, and they're not getting sleep. And so that really is where we started this journey. We've now measured almost 700 million hours of infant sleep. So it's truly ripe for the issue of real world data and real world evidence. And we measured about 28 million cry episodes. On average, the baby is calm within 1 to 2 minutes. If the baby is not calm, the bed just shuts off because the baby's hungry or needs something else. So class 2 medical device, as I mentioned before, for keeping babies safely on the back. We're now in over 160 top hospitals across the US. Used in postpartum, but also used in the NICUs for babies withdrawing from opiates to improve sleep and reduce crying. I want to be really clear about what the indication for use is. They're using it to reduce crying and improve sleep. Also used postoperatively. A study was done, well, I'll get to the studies in a second. Also to reduce liability where mothers are falling asleep with the babies in bed with them, which is unsafe. 2 studies we did last year, 90% of the nurses said it reduces their stress, improves care, and on average, each bed reduced nurse labor 4 to 5 hours per day. So while there have been robots in the operating room for decades, this really is one of the first, if not the first, care robot in the hospital. So this is a study of ours with 114,000 babies. And you can see total night sleep on the right, which pretty much increases an hour automatically. Again, you could do that if you drive them in the car. So that wasn't really the aha moment. The aha moment was on the left, the longest sleep duration, which at about 3 months of age increases from an average of 5 hours to 6.5, almost 7 hours. And the reason that's important is one of the things we're trying to learn right now is what is best for the development of a baby's brain? Is it to be held and rocked and shushed for all night long for 12 hours a night, or is it best for a baby's brain to be put in a dark closet for 12 to 14 hours a night? And it's kind of an obvious question. Right now, we put babies in a dark room by themselves, which is not optimal. Number of studies been done. I'm not going to go over all of these, but we have all of this information at the desk. A lot of press about this as we're really trying to solve a social problem, which is the absence of the extended family. We're looking to solve other problems, medical problems, reducing infant sleep death, reducing postpartum depression, reducing child abuse. All of those things we know are related to crying and increased sleep. And now tens of thousands of families get a SNU for free, a SNU rental from their employers. So JP Morgan Chase, Under Armour, Snapchat, we're talking at North Shore Hospital here in Chicago. Children's of New Orleans was the first hospital in America to provide it for their employees to improve sleep, reduce crying, and to improve retention, recruitment, and ultimately in the hospital setting, reduce accidents from tired doctors and nurses. Just finishing up a study at Mass General right now using this with medical residents with new babies to reduce burnout and reduce medical errors. Now we're starting to see use around the world of this bed. It's sold in 35 countries. This is our team. We're very proud that one of our members, our head of medical affairs, is the past president of the American Academy of Pediatrics. We're just launching a study in Wisconsin with the president of the AMA and Medical College of Wisconsin, using this rural and urban to improve care. And thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Karp. Lastly, I would love to introduce Dr. Jane Zhang, CEO of Remmie.
Hi, everyone. How timely. Thank you for Dr. Harvey for your baby bed. I wish I had one. When my son and I were in the Children's Hospital emergency room at 3 a.m. in the morning, he was screaming with a piercing ear pain and spiking of fever. It took us 4 hours to wait to get seen by a clinician and 2 minutes to be diagnosed with an ear infection and sent home with antibiotics prescription. Ironically, I'm Jane Zhang. I have a PhD in biomedical engineering, specialized in low resource setting diagnostics. I couldn't stop asking myself, what am I doing with my life? Why am I not solving this problem? How many people are suffering just like myself? It turned out I was not alone. I founded Remmie because I was inspired by this experience with my son, but 24 million American children suffer from some type of ENT conditions a year at least. Their current diagnosis is typically done by this 100-year-old tool called otoscope, which is pretty much manual, requires an in-person view, and subjective. This could lead to about 40% misdiagnosis rate at the primary care settings and $28 billion of costs for unnecessary referral or ER visits. Globally, deriving an accessible, affordable, and accurate ENT diagnosis methods is a $40 billion market. This is how Remmie is transforming the way that ENT conditions can be examined and diagnosed today. Patients or caregivers at home could use Remmie's otoscope. The telehealth enabling features allow them to capture symptoms, save them, or share with their clinicians. The data could include images of the ENT, eardrums especially, text in terms of description of symptoms, or live video. They could even start a real-time video streaming directly from the otoscope with their clinician if they wish to. On the other side, clinicians leverage Remmie's data service to facilitate the telehealth visit or to master the data coming from the patients, including symptoms, activities, and engagement, which could be easily integrated to their EMR. We've launched both products now and are working towards Remmie AI. With Remmie AI, all this data can be aggregated and support the clinician's decision-making. It's like each clinician being supported by millions with every single diagnosis. This makes their diagnosis very accurate. Today, diagnosis that's unsupported by Remmie Health is about 30% less in accuracy compared with diagnosis supported by Remmie AI. This leads to better outcomes for patients, providers, and payers at large. We are de-risking the go-to market for Remmie AI. It's kind of a really buzzword right now. How do we really land it to the market, and how do we have people adopt it? We are dividing up the market into tiered customers in terms of approaching silver tiers. They can directly purchase the Remmie otoscope today from Amazon. If you search Remmie 3, you will have it next week. In terms of gold tier customers, they are majorly providers and clinical networks who can leverage the data service in terms of supporting their clinicians to conduct telehealth visits, providing the options of examining and diagnosing ENT conditions over telehealth. The platinum customers are really the ones that will leverage the Remmie AI sort of deployable directly via Remmie's data services. We have the fortunate of talking to our customers all along. 2/3 of them have expressed satisfaction towards this has really reduced unnecessary visits for them. About each ER visit that's saved is about $2,000 in cost. As soon as they activate an account with us, they stay with us and they stay engaged. From our survey of about 11 months of data, patients stay engaged for up to 7 months and counting. And 90% of them are likely to recommend Remmie to their friends and families. We have also had the honor of serving over 1,500 customers so far, including patients directly and major telehealth and clinical networks in the country in the form of either direct purchase, reseller agreements, co-marketing, clinical advocacy, and various others. For example, with Lurie, we're building a clinical study, which I'm going to talk about in the next slide. We're also distributing globally in India, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand right now. With the commercial products on the market, we are continuously tasked with refining them. So the otoscopes, the data services, which are generating revenue, we continue to refine and listen to the market. We are having the honor right now to have major funding through NIH, through an SBIR phase 2 grant to kick off our clinical study with Lurie Children's, with the generous support of Lurie's otolaryngology, general pediatrics, in terms of catalyst support, and the honor of working with CTIP's clinical study unit in terms of building out the clinical study to validate the technical performance of Remmie AI with Lurie's patients and clinicians. Within the next 2 years, hopefully, with enough data, we can accelerate the FDA clearance process for Remmie AI to serve the clinicians in terms of diagnosing different phases of otitis media. I'm incredibly honored to work with my team who have expertise in commercialization, healthcare technology, and software development. I have generous clinical advisory through CTIP, as well as through a clinician from University of Washington, where I'm currently an adjunct faculty in mechanical engineering. We are committed to removing the barrier to accessible, accurate, and affordable ENT care for all of us. I'm looking forward to your questions. Please come over to my booth. My name is Jane Zhang. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zhang. We'll now invite all the speakers to join us for the Q&A period. Looks like we have a few minutes to dive into a few questions. I'll have you all stand just there. First, I would love to pose the question of how do you prioritize direct patient feedback in your design process? Ashley, you can go ahead and start since you have the mic. Go ahead.
Perfect. So we prioritize the patient feedback in a couple of different ways and make sure that we get it in a couple of different areas. So we have digital opportunities for our team to be able to collect data. So whether it's our website or passing something through to the clinics themselves. Are you telling me? Move this side. Okay, thank you. We also put different types of feedback forms in the actual products themselves so that we can collect the patients and we prepay and prioritize, and I should say incentivize people to give us that feedback as well. We also work directly with the clinicians to make sure that we're getting the feedback from them because they are that intermediate space. And we try to make sure that we have programs in place to reduce any of the communication burdens, but also ensure that we get it swiftly and efficiently.
Same exact thing. And we also do quarterly surveys, marketing surveys.
Yeah, we actually really prioritize the voice of patients and customers from day one along the product development cycle. Before we launched the product, we actually went to LA Baby Show. And that's where I also, actually a few years ago, we saw the Snoot exhibit there. They told us things like, we want this to be a certain shape. We want this to be like a thermometer, the otoscope, because we can adopt it easily. They told us, for example, it cannot be a hard shell specula. We want this to be soft in touch. Things like, so a lot of it along the way of, and then they told us, I don't know what I'm looking at. If I'm looking at an otoscope image, I'm a layperson, I see an eardrum, I don't even know that's an eardrum, not to mention what's wrong with it. So incredible voices from customers and patients. And over time, when we're developing Remmie AI, I'm looking at, working through thousands of patients and evaluate their usability in terms of how can we do better? Is the light, should the light be brighter? Should temperature be lower? All kinds of form factor issues, as well as the software usability capabilities in terms of developing the app.
Thank you. And staying with you, actually, I think, for all of your products, obviously fitting in the existing clinical care workflows are important, and thinking about transitioning potentially from the hospital or alternative care setting to home. Can you speak to how you're thinking about this process? I know you have a provider and patient experience. So what comes to mind as far as your evaluation of the product in that sense?
Yeah, in terms of what is being, so otoscope has been a physician's tool for all these years, right? So I'm trying to move it towards having the patients becoming the hands of the clinicians. So there's quite a bit of adoption and learning and training that we need to onboard the patients for, in terms of, a clinician look at my device and they're saying, why is the angle this way? Because I should be 90 degrees. I'm making it 120. I told him it is because it looks like a thermometer, ultimately. So that's kind of one way of translating from hospital to, a clinical setting to the home. Otherwise, it does matter. The home network settings could be varying. People told me if I'm doing Wi-Fi direct connection with the device, I cannot do an internet telehealth visit. I really need to connect this to my router.
Our goal is to support nurses in the hospital, and we're hoping and believing that this will be used globally for birth hospitals, because there's a increasing shortage of nurses availability. But ultimately, our goal for the consumer is that 100% of people in the developed world will get a snoof for free, and they'll get it either from their employer, from the insurance company, or from the government. And so we're well moved along there. I'll say one last point, which is that many nations around the world are suffering an impending crisis in terms of the drop in the birth rate. And one of the things we're hoping to be able to do is to support the birth rate by making it easier to have a baby in the first 6 months.
Sure. If you could just speak to your provider and patient education process, I think that would be helpful to get insight on.
We take the provider and patient education process is its complete own department at our organization. We are fundamentally changing something that has also been used for many, many, many centuries. So we do different in-person for live trainings. We do virtuals for the clinicians as well as the patients. We have a whole section on our website just dedicated to patient education.
Awesome. Well, I think we'll have to conclude there. We are at time, but thank you so much to our companies here today. Again, please visit them at their booths in the hall, and we encourage you to ask them more questions as well. So without further ado, I'll hand it off to Madison Christmas for our next panel discussion on investing in pediatrics.